The government is facing a fierce backlash after the bungled isolation of 2 returning New Zealand citizens, including calls for the Health Minister to resign. The Prime Minister has announced she's brought in the military to manage quarantine and isolation facilities, with the option of bringing in troops if necessary. 9 days after arriving from Britain, the 2 women were allowed to leave their Auckland hotel without being tested and travel to Wellington because one of their parents had died. Both have since tested positive for the virus, the first new cases in 25 days. Also today, a bombshell allegation in Parliament from the National Party, challenging the official line that the 2 women came into close contact with no other person during the journey from Auckland to Wellington. Our political editor, Jane Patterson, has the story.
It should never have happened, and it cannot be repeated.
Jacinda Ardern has brought in the military. Assistant Chief of Defence Air Commodore Digby Webb will now lead the whole process and audit the rules around leaving facilities.
He can also seek access to our military's logistics, operational expertise, and, if needed, personnel to assist in the running of the facilities.
Part of the response is the immediate suspension of all exemptions on compassionate grounds. Ms Ardern says it's tough but necessary.
While it may be a hard and unpopular position to take, it is the right one for our country.
Nationals leader Todd Muller wants heads to roll, namely Health Minister David Clark.
He is the minister, he sets the tone around how serious this is. This is a national crisis for this country.
David Clark says specific assurances were given that those in managed isolation and quarantine would be tested at least twice, and he's not going anywhere.
Ministers were clearly under the understanding that this was not going to happen, that people would be being tested before they left the facility and only be allowed to leave if they received a negative test. I am a part of fixing of the problem.
And the controversy was given a good airing in question time this afternoon.
Has the Prime Minister received advice as to whether any incoming passenger into this country has not been tested when they should have been tested?
The Director General of Health directly advised the Minister and myself this morning that the protocol would have required anyone granted compassionate leave, which those members have lobbied for frequently and often, would be tested before having been granted it.
Todd Muller piling the pressure on the Health Minister.
What level of incompetence needs to be served up by her Minister of Health before she finally sacks him?
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Health isn't the one saying we should open the borders.
Nationals' Michael Woodhouse asked the Minister if he had seen reports the 2 women went the wrong way on their way to Wellington and came into close contact with the people who gave them directions.
Was he aware that the Good Samaritans who assisted them were rewarded with a kiss and a cuddle, and would he consider that to be a close contact?
Mr. Speaker, I would be deeply concerned if that were the case. I have been assured that there was no contact on their journey to the place where they visited their relative in the Wellington region.
And still unanswered questions officials are scrambling to provide, including how many other people have been allowed to leave managed isolation or quarantine early after being given an exemption without a test. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jane Patterson.